Hey, oh, oops. Hey, things don't always go as planned. My guest wasn't supposed to be on right then yet. So anyway, welcome to episode 215 of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Freeman, and you may ask why I have this t-shirt on underneath my usual dress shirt. I don't think I've ever done that before on the podcast, but I'm not sure I've done 215 of these, so I'm not sure. But anyway, I have this on to remind us that we all have kind of this exterior to our lives that we often present to the world, and it shows a professional side, and it shows the best in us. But then we also have the underneath, the things that no one can see or no one would know about unless we told them. Things that are largely invisible. My guest today will have a lot to say about this. And also I want to say I met him during 2020, which was, I remember, a really tough year. And I'm so grateful because, see, you just amazing.
Tim Sohn.
Hey, welcome back. Let me tell you a little more about today's guest. Until I met Tim Sohn, I thought the words fun and cancer were about as far apart as Antarctica and the North Pole. Fortunately, I've had the pleasure of watching Tim these last few years as he's brought his vision of supporting people joining with cancer as part of their lives into reality in a big way. Tim has a deep understanding of this important work, probably because of his own journey with cancer. He founded Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer, a nonprofit organization that provides safe places where cancer patients, survivors, and supporters come together to share their stories and connect, as well as find resources that provide healing, hope, and resilience. The centerpiece of this organization is the Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer podcast, which recently celebrated its third anniversary. This innovative organization also hosts in-person events and publishes life-changing books. Please welcome to the stage Tim Sohn. Tim.
Oh, are we no, is this no, this isn't live. Is it recorded? I was just brushing my teeth. What's going on?
Yeah, we're like 4.5 minutes into our show, Tim.
Oh gosh, it was amazing. I was listening from behind the blanket and I didn't brush my teeth yet today, so I just figured I'd bring my toothbrush and I'd show up with my toothbrush. And I'm so happy to be here with you and my trusty toothbrush.
So my first question is it a typical thing for you to brush your teeth under a blanket?
I have to say this is a first experience for me. I was just thinking I'm going to be on Jason's show. and it's going to be so much fun. And what better way to come than with a blanket, a compassion blanket, and with my electric toothbrush. It wouldn't be right without them, you know?
Wow, Tim, you really know how to make an entrance.
Well, thanks for having me, Jason. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks, I'm excited to have you again. Since I last had you on, I mean, it's amazing you progressed so much in your journey, and we know each other better, and it's just so exciting. So can we dive right in?
Yeah, let's go swimming.
A toothbrushing. Let's go toothbrushing together. No, that doesn't.
Here's your toothbrush, Jason. Next time.
I originally got this idea for the second show when you were telling me about your last in-person event in New York City and some of the fun creative things you did. Can you will you please describe some of those things?
Sure. So, in terms of the fun perspective, one thing that we do every year, we have this tradition now. We have this game where you know the game Hot Potato, Jason?
Kind of. Would you describe how you play it really quick?
Yeah. So basically, you pass a potato from person to person and you have music playing. And then when the music stops, the person who has the potato is out. And you just keep going and going until there's one person left.
Like a live actual potato from Idaho?
Maybe it's from Idaho. I don't know, because we use a rubber chicken, and I'm not sure exactly where the chicken is from either.
Oh, okay, so you have this game called Hot Potato, but it's really hot rubber chicken.
Exactly, yeah. So that's what we do. And the rubber chicken squeaks sometimes when you pass it from person to person. So part of the reason that we do this game is that obviously a lot of time cancer conversations can be heavy. So I feel like it's important to still be able to bring joy and being able to bring happiness, even in a cancer journey and at a cancer event. So that is really the most fun part, I think, at least from my perspective of the event. We also have really inspiring.
So first of all, what do you, as you play the game of hot potato or hot rubber chicken with the participants, how does their demeanor change during the course of the game?
I mean, so we play the chicken dance song during the game. And so the music gets faster and faster. And so people tend to pass the chicken back and forth faster and faster during the game. And some people get really competitive, but overall, just like the vibe is just like people are laughing and smiling, and it's just such a fun component to bring to the event. It's great to see the smiles and the laughter.
I would imagine some people come to the event like in a fairly serious mood.
Yeah, for sure. You know, it's a serious topic for a lot of people. You know, some people may not be feeling well at the event because cancer patients and survivors and supporters come to the event. So, you know, sometimes they're in the midst of their cancer journey. So, I think that it's really great that we can like bring people together from different perspectives. And one of the things that showing up is really meant for is to be able to support each other. So like at this event, I noticed that one lady, she just had like a really serious demeanor. I didn't know if she wasn't feeling good or whatever, but like I just went over to her in between some of the talks at the event and I just started a conversation with her, and we had a really great conversation. She used to be a principal. She has, I believe it's colon cancer. She wrote a book, a children's book about cancer. And we were smiling and laughing, and yeah, so sometimes it can be hard in a cancer journey, but when we can connect with other people and have conversations and make each other laugh and smile, it's just it makes it all worth it.
Are there emotional times and tears during the events too?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely that. One thing that happened at the event this year was my guest on the show at the event, her name's Rochelle Prosser, and her perspective on her connection to cancer, or connections to cancer, is that her daughter was diagnosed with brain cancer at age 3, and her husband was diagnosed with another type of cancer only a few days later, which is crazy. So Rochelle drove up from Miami to New York City for this event.
Wait. She drove up from
Miami,
Virginia. From Virginia?
From Miami, Florida.
Oh my God, that's commitment,
right? And she sent me this picture. She said, "I have a surprise for you." This was like the event didn't start yet, and so she sent me a picture, and it was her and her daughter, who is now 14 years old. And she was bringing her daughter to the event, and I didn't know. It was a total surprise. And so during the event, there were 2 points during the event at the end of each day where her daughter wrote something for her mom. And so on the second day, how we ended the second day of the event was we had an award ceremony. We gave everybody their own individual unique award. And so her daughter Kayla got the Beacon of Hope Award. So I go to, and we had a crown for everybody, a crown that we got from the dollar store, and we put labels with the names of the people and the award on each crown. And so I announced Kayla's award, and she comes up and she says, No. I have a presentation for my mommy. And during the event, she wrote these beautiful words about her mom and like how her mom has impacted her. And I guess her mom didn't really know, like she hadn't really communicated that in the past to her. And her mom was like crying, and like 2 other women went up and was like holding her legs were like shaking. And it was just like a really beautiful moment at the event.
It just gives me goosebumps. The first time I did it, it gave me goosebumps, and the first time you told me, it gave me goosebumps, and it gives me goosebumps now.
Yeah, me too.
So that's quite a span. It's a 2-day event.
2 days, yes.
I don't know. In case we don't know what 2 is.
Yes, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Cool.
We're doing math. Yay.
So that's quite a span between the giggles and laughter and the chicken dance I'm playing and hot potato and this goosebumpy thing of a daughter really expressing her emotions and her story of her appreciation for her mom that have been largely invisible up until that point.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. More goosebumps are coming. Tim Sohn.
Who's Tim? I thought it was Tim Sohn. No, I'm just kidding.
Tim Sewing.
Sewing. Oh, sewing.
those of you who don't know this, which might be all of you, as long as I've known Tim, I've pronounced his simple last name. That's simple to pronounce in like hundreds of different ways. Maybe not, maybe just 3 or 4, but so during this podcast, just so you're aware, we're going to drift from the utterly trivial, like how I pronounce Tim's name as a joke, to the depth, to the deep stuff, and we're going back and forth, and so you're going to need to stay on your toes, but it should be okay because I speak slowly, so. Yeah, you'll keep up. So, the second wave of goosebumps came because Tim Sohn, if you had never been on the journey, found the courage to be on a journey, from being very hidden about your leukemia to where you are now. If you hadn't ever had the courage not only to do a podcast, which is one thing, but then a live event's a whole different animal, because you're putting money out and you need to attract people, and if none of that had happened, Rochelle's daughter might have never had the space to express those words.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
What does that feel like to be part of that for other people?
It feels really good. When I created the show with other people in mind, not knowing that at some point or points in my journey that I would need the show, the community, the family, the showing up family at points in my journey also. So the fact that other people trust me and trust the show to share their stories there, it means the world to me. And shout out to Puffs. I may need them soon. So
shout out to Puffs.
Yes.
So for like, how long was it between the time of your initial leukemia diagnosis and in the time of shout out to Jenny Go's show, where you talk publicly about your cancer journey? How many years was that?
It was almost 15 years.
15?
Yeah.
What was that like during those years, having very few people who knew about what you were going through?
So in my journey, I've been very blessed in that I've had minimal or no side effects or physical effects from my cancer. So for me, in the first 15 years of my journey, I thought, is my story worthy? Like, am I sick enough to show up and share my story? Like, if somebody can't see my cancer, then, and when you can see other people's cancer, like when they're going through chemo or they're not feeling good or they have side effects, and I look fine. I take a pill every day. Now I take 2 pills every day. And I go on my merry way and live a life that's very normal. Like, you would never know I had cancer. And for the most part, for the first 15 years, I really didn't think about it that much, except I took a pill every day.
Is my story important enough to share because other people have it worse.
Exactly.
I wonder how many listeners have ever thought that. I know I've definitely thought that about my disability. I'm like, I have some voice stuff. It sounds like I'm hammered, and then I have a little few coordination differences. I'm not in a wheelchair. I don't need someone to feed me on and on and on. It is. So how do you go from that place of minimizing your story and saying, well, it's no big deal. I take one pill a day. Now I take 2 pills a day. How do you go from that place of minimizing it to a place of, hey, I have a story and it's important to share?
So I would say, so I got this call, not this call, this LinkedIn direct message one day from somebody within the last few years. And she also has chronic myeloid leukemia, the same cancer I have. And she told me in this direct message, I had never heard from her before, but she said, I was just diagnosed with CML today. I'm completely overwhelmed and frustrated and and I was like, do you want to get on a call? Like, I'd be happy to talk with you. And I got on the call with her and she said something similar, like she was overwhelmed and And I said, and she said, would you be willing to share your story with me? And I said, sure. And they said, 17 years ago, I was diagnosed with chronic myeloid leukemia. And she said, 17 years? And I said, yeah. And so over time, my perspective has changed because by sharing our stories, no matter where we are in the journey, but even like this month, I'm an 18-year survivor of chronic myeloid leukemia. So you would think,
Congratulations.
oh, thank you. So you would think like, that's a long time. Like, are people going to care about my story anymore? But when we keep showing up and sharing our story, especially down the line, we're giving people hope. That person's reaction was like 17 years. Like, that gives me so much hope.
And talk about how sharing our stories can serve people that we've never met. Like, she wasn't a longtime friend. She wasn't a family member. She found you somehow and reached out because she needed hope, and in that moment you were hope.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, by sharing our stories, we give people hope. People can learn from our stories. We can connect with each other. I've met so many people who have cancer or had cancer or family members or caregivers. And while all of our stories are different and unique, there's also parts that we share that are similar. Like, cancer patients or survivors have probably all heard, you have cancer or you have chronic myeloid leukemia or whatever it is, just for an example. But I would say the biggest benefit to sharing your story is connecting with people, becoming friends with people, collaborating with people who, I think oftentimes as cancer survivors or patients, we feel misunderstood. Especially in my journey, my cancer is an invisible cancer. So unless you hear me sharing my story, you probably don't know I have cancer. So by having conversations with other people, no matter what their perspective is, we can all learn from each other and try to understand each other better, I think.
What have you learned from from other people going through the cancer story who you've had on the show or who've been in your books? What have you learned for yourself that has helped you on your journey?
All of those people have gone through challenging times, but they've also figured out different ways to become resilient. Or like even at the in-person showing up event, Erica Campbell, who used to be my co-host, she spoke about resilience, and she said that we are all already resilient. We just need to find the courage to use our resilience that we have already.
We all are already resilient. Just need to find the courage to use our resilience. That's beautiful.
Yeah. So I think hope is really like a big word for me when it comes to showing up in all the things we do, the books, the shows, the events. Hope is like what I try to bring to everyone that shows up in some sort of way, as a guest, as a viewer. I like to think of viewers as family members instead.
Yeah. So you have a great big family.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. From all over the world. From all different perspectives. And we can all learn from each other and support each other and lift each other up.
What are the range of perspectives that you've heard regarding cancer?
I've heard perspectives from patients and like all different kinds of cancers. Patients, survivors, supporters. Supporters could be like family members or friends, caregivers. We've had oncology nurses on the show, an oncologist on the show. So the whole range of different perspectives. And I think it's really important that it be acknowledged that everybody's story is important. I thought for 15 years my story wasn't important, but now I feel very strongly that everybody, no matter what your connection to cancer is, your story is important, it's valid, and I encourage everybody to share their story when they're ready to do it. I waited 15 years. You might not wait 15 years, but when you feel like the time is right for you, you know?
I suppose sharing one's cancer story can look differently for different people. Like to what's the range of how one can share one's cancer story? I suppose you are now on one end with a nonprofit and with books, and you're the way you're sharing is giving people who've never met you access to hope. What, like, how else can people share their cancer story?
I mean, people can share with their friends, with their family. You know, you don't have to share your story publicly, or maybe you start off sharing it privately with some friends or family, and maybe eventually you build up the courage to share your story publicly. But yeah, I do want to emphasize that, you know, you don't have to share it publicly ever. But if you want to, you're going to help a lot of people. But I do also feel like by sharing our stories, we can do a lot of good in the world. We can make a difference in the world. But there are challenges also when we share our stories too.
What are some of those challenges?
So some of the challenges could be like we might feel like we're being judged. People oftentimes people don't know how to react when they hear somebody has cancer. So some of your relationships may disappear, they may change. Some of them may be strengthened. Some of your friends or your family may like flock to you and like really be by your side. Um, but you're sharing an aspect of your life that people may not know already. And it could be the whole range of what changes with that. So but I would say overall, from my perspective, the good has outweighed the challenges because I've met so many amazing people who understand me in some sort of way, and vice versa by sharing.
You know when you get two questions in your head and you want to ask them both at once. So I'll ask. So what's your current perspective on when to share with kids? What age and
So this question is hard for me. I think each family needs to make their own decision. You know, it's a personal decision. Some kind of cancers, so mine's an invisible cancer, like I was saying. Some people have to get like traditional chemo and their hair is going to fall out, and like, so their kids are going to know, you know, that something's going on. So for me, I waited until so my journey is for 15 years, almost 15 years. I had cancer, and then I was out of cancer for a year and a half, and then it came back and is still with me in some amount. So I waited until I was out of cancer to tell our kids that I had cancer. This is not common from the conversations I've had on the show. Most people tell their children, they may not use the word cancer depending on their age. And now since it's been back, I have not, or me and my wife have not had that conversation with our kids yet. I take a medication that, so I have a chronic cancer. So I'm going to have to take this medication for the rest of my life, but I've been doing pretty great for the most part for my whole journey from a physical capacity. So we haven't shared with our kids that my cancer is back. That's not necessarily what your decision is going to be, but like what I said, it's a really personal decision to make. I think it can bring you a lot closer to your kids by sharing that, but I think it also depends on the age and your situation and things.
Speaking of sharing, if someone shares, if a friend shares with me, a friend shares with any of the listeners that they have cancer, what are some pointers in terms of supporting that person?
I would say the biggest thing is just let them know that you're there. Show up for them, you know, send them a message, call them, whatever it is, and just say, you know, I'm here. How can I support you? I think too, it depends on what point in the journey the person is at who has cancer. So like at some points, they may just be overwhelmed and they might not know how to answer it. So it might be a good idea to just, if you live close, maybe you want to like make them something for dinner one night and drop it off. So like take the initiative instead of asking like specifically what they need, depending on, it's a really hard question because I think it really depends what point in the journey the person is at. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. But I suppose just like any type of friendship, you want to keep the friendship going and nurture the friendship. So it's probably not good just to freeze and say I don't know what to do, so I'm not going to do anything for months on end out of my own insecurities.
Yeah, it's definitely better to have a conversation about it with the person than just freeze or don't show up anymore. Then you'll have a better idea. Like for me, I love to receive gifts, not GIFTSs, but GIFSs, silly ones, because that makes me laugh. Now, I wasn't doing that 18 years ago, but now I know, like, if I'm having a hard day and I get a silly gift, like, that's going to make my day. Like, it's not that much, right? Like, you don't have to send me a pan of lasagna or whatever. But something like that would make me laugh, which I like to do. Ooh.
Speaking of little things which are amazing, I have a screaming goat.
Oh, look, it's the screaming goat. Look, we have matching screaming goats.
So what has the goat come to mean to you?
So there's a story behind the goat. So what happened is in 2021, our mutual friend Brian Schulman was in Princeton, New Jersey, visiting his son. And I drove down to visit him when he was, because I live in Pennsylvania, so we're a few hours away, but not too bad. And so we were in Barnes and Noble one day, and we're both like looking around separately. And I see that box of the screaming goat. And I love silly things. Just like, yeah, exactly. So what happened was I bought the screaming goat, not having any idea what it was or what it did. But I got it. And then Brian was like, what do you have in the bag? Like, I wasn't really even going to show him. But I was like, at first, I was just going to get it and check it out later. And he was like, dude, what's in the bag? And I was like, oh, it's a screaming goat. And so he bought a screaming goat, and every so often I'll send somebody, a friend or somebody that just like needs a pick-me-up, a screaming goat in the mail. Goat on showing up. Also, we've made it into an acronym called Get Out and Thrive.
Mm.
And goat could also mean greatest of all time, which is what you are, Jason Freeman.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you, and you are too, my friend. You are.
Oh, thank you.
Speaking of things that bring joy, that blanket you were doing the Linus thing with at the beginning of the resilience. Hold it up one more time, please. Love, grace, healing, thoughts, hope, compassion, just beautiful words. Resilience, peace. So what's the story of this blanket?
So I had found out at some point that my cancer numbers had gone up, and I had moved to New Hampshire, and there were a lot of changes, but then my cancer decided to change. So anyway, probably the end of that week after I had that appointment, I have 4 boxes on my stairs at my apartment. And I'm like, who would be sending me something, right? So I got this blanket from my friend Rachel Druckenmiller, and she and Zach Demopoulos partnered together to send me this, and she also and him sent me this emotional support chicken along with this like box of soup and I don't know, like all these different. It was just like so kind, you know. And I had met both of them through Brian Schulman's show originally. Just like I think that's how we originally connected, right, Jason? Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So shout
yeah.
out to Brian Schulman.
Shout out to Brian. Amazing.
Yeah.
So who growing up, who were your mentors in kindness?
I would say my parents. My mom worked in public health her whole life. She stayed with us at home until we were all in kindergarten. And then she was a school nurse and she worked for different hospitals. And my dad worked as a alcohol and substance abuse counselor and supervisor, and he also even still does retreats with men from the city who are going through their alcohol journeys, you know. They also helped create a homeless shelter in New York, not that far from where they live, a number of years ago.
In New York City or New York State?
In New York State, in Brewster, New York. That's the
Wow.
town, Brewster. So they're both like very giving, kind people. My mom is the kind of person who sends cards to everybody for any occasion at all, like birthdays, anniversaries, just like any occasion you could think of. And it was funny, I was talking to Dad recently and he was saying like it's pretty crazy how like what he does with the retreats and what I do with showing up are similar in that we both, you know, give people safe spaces to share their stories and connect with each other. Just
more goosebumps, paging goosebumps. I hadn't expected all of these.
Yeah. So yeah, especially like in the last few years, I realized the similarity in what we do, which we're both very passionate about those things we do.
Well, how neat that you two can share that.
Yeah.
How
For sure.
neat.
Yeah.
How about who were your mentors in terms of dealing with challenges in a proactive way growing up?
Challenges.
Well, like I think of how you're dealing now with your cancer journey, which is a challenge. And so, who were your mentors? Teachers, family members, friends?
I would say my sister Eileen. She's been very supportive. I remember when I was diagnosed with cancer and I was in the hospital and we were trying to figure out what treatment option I was going to go with. And they were suggesting a clinical trial that nobody had ever been on before.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah, and Eileen was like, "No, we're not doing that. No." So being the protective younger sister, she's younger than me, but she's always been very supportive in my whole journey. So I would say number one is her for sure.
That brings up not only is there the shock of the original diagnosis of cancer, but there's so much uncertainty at the beginning of a lot of diagnoses and such. What advice would you give someone about dealing with that amount of uncertainty and the thousands of questions in the head?
I would say lean on other people that have gone through. I clearly need new headphones, so thanks for bearing with me over here. Yeah, I would say, like for me, I did not seek out any other survivors, patients, supporters, nobody for 15 years. So being able to connect with people, like I know the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, they have a peer-to-peer support program. So if you have CML, they'll match you up with somebody else who has or had CML before to help you with advice, with like different decisions. There's a lot of hard decisions when it comes to cancer, So yeah, I would say seek out other people who have gone through similar things. Be patient. It's a shock at first. You're like, cancer? Like where did this pesky thing come from? Yeah, so I would say that's like the number one thing is support. Like reach out for support.
That brings up, what tips would you give someone going to a doctor's visit? So often the visits are fast, and then we leave, and it's like, oh, I have that question and that question. Oh, shoot.
Yeah, I would say have a list of questions before you go to your appointments. This is something that I did not used to be good with at all. I would go, he would look at my numbers, they would take blood tests. I would come back 3 months later. He would look at me a little. But sometimes there's questions that you have. So by making a list ahead of time, then you don't have to think about it like in the moment, or at least you have those questions. And then if you think of others, that's good too. Another thing I would say is if you can, bring somebody with you to support you. Like my dad usually goes with me. Sometimes my wife Joy comes with me, but mostly my dad has come over the last 18 years. And also maybe find somebody who will bring lunch for you. Also, like my dad would bring tuna fish sandwiches, and it got kind of old after a while. So it turned into like this inside joke. I'd be like, Dad, so are you bringing that tuna fish sandwich this week? Yeah. So I would say if you could bring somebody, a family member, a friend, whoever, just to be by your side. And maybe you forget a question during the appointment and they're like, hey, did you also wanted to ask about this, right? Something like that.
Will you take notes while you're at the doctor's office too?
I usually don't. It's a good idea. I mean, I will if there's something new, if there's like a new medication I'm going to be taking, or if he has some kind of suggestion. Yeah. Yeah.
As we're talking about this, it seems unusual that there's a custom of not taking notes in a doctor's office, because like for a lot of other important things, if we're having an important discussion, we want to take notes, but for whatever reason, when it comes to a doctor's office, we don't take notes. It's kind of strange.
Yeah, I don't really know what it is. I think it kind of goes to the point that it's important to advocate for ourselves. And maybe sometimes we feel like we don't feel comfortable, especially at first, going to see a new doctor. And maybe we're kind of like intimidated by our doctor, and we just like, we go and we just expect them to tell us what to do and we'll go do it. So maybe that's part of the reasoning.
This brings up what have you gleaned from your guests and stuff about finding a good, about finding a doctor who's a good match for you?
So it really depends like on the guest. Like some guests, they go to their original oncologist and they just stick with that person and they believe what they say and they don't really do much other research. Some people, they'll go for second opinions, third opinions, fourth opinions. It just depends on the guest, and kind of like their experience, maybe if they've spoken to other survivors or patients or supporters before in terms of like what kind of knowledge they have. But I would say it just depends on the person. It like runs the whole gamut in terms of how people deal with that. I know when I moved to New Hampshire, I wanted to switch my oncologist, and it was really hard to be able to switch oncologists. Like when you go to get another oncologist, they want to get the medical records from your previous oncologist, and you have to get the current oncologist has to get HIPAA approval, and then they have to send it somewhere, and the other oncologist won't see you until they have your medical records from your previous one, and it's this whole thing. So there's definitely challenges there in terms of just like the healthcare system and, trying to navigate it all.
I hadn't thought of the HIPAA thing and that taking, wow.
That's the whole thing.
So we've talked about the podcast and the live event, but you've also published 3 books in the last few years.
Yeah.
So you write a story in the book, and then you have other writers write stories. What is that like?
It's been really cool to bring people together. So the most recent book is Perspectives on Invisible Illnesses, where...
I love that title.
Thank you. Where 11 people share their stories of different cancers, of chronic fatigue syndrome, depression, chronic anxiety, and a few others. But I would say like it's really cool to see the process that each writer goes through when they're writing their story, and just kind of like when you're writing a chapter for a book, you typically have more time to think about your story and like reflect on it and process it. So that's been really cool to hear about that. And then also just like bringing all the authors together. I always do a live book launch party after the book launches. And oftentimes the people who write the books don't know each other, or some of them don't know each other before the book launch party. So to be able to bring people together who can understand each other in different ways through their stories. And I feel like even people that have, like people who have cancer, but people who have like chronic fatigue syndrome or whatever adversity it is, that we can all still relate to each other in different ways through our stories, because they're all challenging stories, and we've all done things to like figure out ways to thrive and live with our different invisible illnesses. I never really thought about a book until I published them as a way to build community also, like through the show, building community through books and the events. Like that's the one, like the common thread between everything is like community and bringing people together to connect, and whatever they decide to do from there, collaborate, become friends, inspire each other.
And it sounds like another common thread is always letting people know that there is hope.
Exactly, that there's hope, that they're not alone. I would say those are the 2 big things in everything.
And now I'm so excited you've started a nonprofit.
Yes, Showing Up is now a nonprofit. And we're going to continue doing all the things that we've been doing, the shows, the books, the events. But as a nonprofit now, I'm hoping I have a board which consists of Russ Hedge and Cyan Gates and Andrea Sanchez. And so it's really great to have more people to provide more perspectives in terms of what we do with showing up. And I think it will also help in terms of raising funds for all that we do. I was talking to somebody a few weeks ago, or a few months, maybe like a month or two ago, and he also has a cancer nonprofit organization. And I was talking to him, and I was like, "Why do you think it's like? Why did you start your nonprofit? Or do you think it's a good idea to start one?" And he was like, "Before I started my nonprofit, I was a no profit." And I was like, "Oh, I completely understand where you're coming from. Yes." So I think if in terms of like reaching out to like different companies and individuals, in terms of like reaching out for donations or sponsorships or whatever it is, it just brings more credibility to showing up. And then it's also, you can claim it on your taxes as well, because it's a nonprofit organization. So
what's the best way for people to connect with the goodness of showing up?
So they could go to perspectivesoncancer.com, or they could reach out to me on LinkedIn. Those are the two best ways.
So I ask every guest this, and probably asked you this before. I love talking about the power of doing our imperfect best, and what it means to me is I go for what my dreams and what I want to give the world, and when mistakes and obstacles come up, instead of using them as stop signs, I try to learn from them and once again move forward. What does doing your imperfect best mean to you, Tim Sohn?
My imperfect best means, first of all, showing up. See what I did there with showing up? Boom.
And I have this email, this website right.
Oh, thank you. Yes, perfect.
Cool.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah. So showing up, and I mean, doing my best, like you were saying, like reaching for your dreams. I think one thing that cancer has taught me is to like live life in the moment and don't wait to do different things. So showing up and taking action, and as my friend Andrea Sanchez says, trust the journey.
Trust the journey. Show up, take action, trust the journey. Live in the moment, and that occurs to me. That living in the moment is so important, whether one of your earbuds is falling out or not. Because I mean, even if someone feels absolutely healthy, if we never live in the moment, like how much joy is life really bringing us? So I was saying not to wait for some bigger challenge to inspire us to live in the moment. Why not start the practice now?
I agree with you. Live life now.
And how should we end?
Spam.
Maybe ending talking about spam.
Yeah. What do you want to say about spam, Jason Freeman?
I have I So spam is just you have all these lighthearted, goofy touchstones, and so what's the last thing you want to say about lighthearted, goofy touchstones in the midst of challenging things?
I think lighthearted, goofy things connect us. Like they've connected me and you, Jason. Like we get on spam calls now, Zoom calls. We get on Zoom calls and you show up with spam or bananas or whatever it is. And like, so these funny things like connect us. Like one day me and Jason were on a Zoom call and we both had a banana. So we had to take a screenshot with a banana. So now Jason will be like, so Tim, do you want to have a spam Zoom banana? I don't know. What did you used to call it?
Spam nana Zoom.
Yeah, spam nana Zoom. Exactly. So this is what community is all about: getting to know people and sharing spam and bananas.
It is so refreshing, my friend. We've been talking about like some really challenging life stuff here, but then also having the joy in the spam nana part of it is really fun.
Definitely. And we got to meet in person recently.
Yeah, we did. And I guess it was in Vermont. It wasn't in New Hampshire, I had to think.
Yeah, it was in Woodstock, Vermont, right?
Yeah. Speaking of the Linus blanket over your head, Woodstock, Vermont. Guess we're on a Peanuts cartoon theme.
Exactly. Yes.
For your younger listeners, Peanuts was a paper cartoon in the old days.
It was awesome. You should go find it somewhere. Yeah, maybe you can YouTube it or Google it or something.
So do you have any last comment to tie this all together?
I just want to thank you, Jason, for having me. I always have so much fun when we get together, whether it's on a show or a Zoom call, whether we show up with a blanket or a toothbrush or a toothpaste or a banana or a spam. Yeah, I just want to thank you for having me. I really appreciate your friendship and all the ways that you show up for me and everybody else.
And thank you so much, Tim. You bring joy to my life. Yeah. Like you inspire me when we talk, but you also inspire me. Like I just look online and I'm like, Tim's doing this new thing. It's so exciting. It's great stuff. Thanks for all the friendship, thanks for all the friendship, my friend. And that's kind of redundant, but let's
it's
go
all
with
good.
it.
I mean, you could keep saying, we could make the show like 4 hours if you just keep saying that over and over. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe we could. I don't know.
Yeah. But if there's any two people who could make this show 4 hours, it's you and I, Tim. But we're not going to do that today.
No, but
Tim,
maybe another day we will.
Maybe another day.
Yeah.
A spamathon.
Oh, I like that.
but right now, Tim, guess what we're going to do?
Are we going to dance?
We're going to do the outro.
Oh,
and we can dance to it, but no one will see us. Smile. Okay, bye. Wait, bye.
Bye.